know, Democrats, you never fail to disappoint. So dumb. Trump has disrespected Native communities time and again. This is from an official The Democrats Twitter account. He's attempted to limit their voting rights and blocked critical pandemic relief. Now he's holding a rally glorifying white supremacy at Mount Rushmore, a region once sacred to tribal communities. Now, they have since deleted that. So now we're going to start to have dictates about what we can and can't do according to the most absurd, ahistorical, and moronic versions of wokeness. This is the country we're living in now, folks. And corporations, oh my gosh, everyone is so craven. You know, we have about less than 1% of this country actually fights in all of our wars, is trying to keep America free by signing up to, if necessary, give their life for their country. And what you see is that pretty much the rest of the country is overrun by people who are like, oh, I don't want to get any heat for my position. What if my stock options don't vest? That's who's actually determining national policy now. I've got a second home, a third home to pay off. I need to be able to take a helicopter to work. Come on, I don't want to. You know, I'm on the board of this company. I don't want any problems. Sure, I'll listen to these morons. Sure, I'll do whatever the woke left says. It's very discouraging. It's very discouraging. You would think that just a basic sense of patriotism. I'm not talking about you. If you run a small business and you think that you're going to get shut down, I don't want anyone going hungry because they're making a point that may honestly get just overwhelmed, may get lost in the noise about wokeness. Pick your battles, as I've always said. But for people who have a tremendous amount of influence and wealth, really what this is about is status and what's easiest for them. And they don't really want to take the heat. They don't want to be leading a movement to say, I don't care if you guys try to boycott me. People are still going to buy this product. They're still going to watch this show. And we stand behind the right to disagree because we don't want to live in a country where you can't disagree. How about just one corporate leader? How about one billionaire or multimillionaire who's never going to have to worry about paying the bills or putting food on the table, standing up and saying, I'm sick of this crap. Now, I know some of you are going to say, Buck, Elon Musk. There are some people who are kind of saying this stuff. But nonetheless, here we are. And we are at a point where jokes that were made. There were jokes made about how, what are they going to do? Come for Mount Rushmore next? And turns out they will. What are they going to do? Tear down statues or desecrate statues of George Washington? Yep, just happened. Here in New York City, Washington Square Park, named for the man himself, a place I've spent countless days and afternoons, evenings. One of my favorite places actually in New York City. It's just always an interesting scene down there. That's putting it mildly. They threw red paint on a statue of Washington. Now, I assume they might be able to clean it in some way. You know, they didn't take a chisel to it and ruin it. But the point is, this is a desecration. It's vandalism. Someone's gonna have to clean that up. You're stealing money from the public here by making this now a job that someone has to have to clean up the desecration of the statue. And yeah, now they're coming for George Washington. Notice that they never put up who do they want to celebrate? I think because most of their answers people would laugh at. I mean, we're going to have statues of Jimmy Carter everywhere? Is that the plan? Who are we allowed to celebrate? That's the question the left never answers, because it's just so much easier to destroy. It's so much more fun to be in a position on perpetual offense because you're perpetually aggrieved, because you're always angry about something. All you do is complain. You don't build. You don't make things better. You just complain. Take no responsibility. This is really now the organizing principle between much of the Democrat left. It's not about making things better. It's not about making our society a happier, healthier place where people are free and people can pursue their destiny. It's people are mad and they want someone to blame. People are angry. You know, I'm just going to say it. When you see these mugshots of the Antifa folks that they're picking up and now some of the people that they're going after with the statues, they don't look like a lot of winners. They don't look like winners. Can we just be a little honest about this for a second? I think these are people that need a lot of therapy and did not have particularly strong father figures. These Antifa movements, they got people with a lot of problems. You just see this. I mean, how else could you imagine being so disrespectful to not just cops, but just to a person you don't even know, as we see in all these videos, running up, yelling in their faces, saying horrible things. Their families should be ashamed. They've forgotten that every day in every city in the country and every county in the country, the cops will get a call from someone. And in some cases, they'll get thousands and thousands of these calls, right? But the cops get calls from people who are terrified, who have no one else to go to, and they go to our law enforcement officers. And 99.9 times out of 100, the cops are professional. The cops do their jobs. The cops make things better. If we're going to tear down society because of what 0.1% of interactions or cops or whatever do, we're going to be in a perpetual state of anarchy, despair, and destruction. All right, this is completely lacking in context. It also skips past so many of the much more prominent problems that we have that we really could work to address, but those are off limits to talk about. Family structure, off limits. Can't talk about it. Not allowed. Attitudes about school, about police and respecting police, not allowed to talk about that. Off limits. Okay. Well, we can keep having more of what we have right now. Angry people demanding things that won't fix the things that they claim made them angry in the first place. And what we see from Antifa in particular, the group that the left pretends doesn't exist, but we all know it very clearly does exist. What we see from Antifa is that they have become useful to the Democrat Party for getting attention, for scaring people. They are a wing of the DNC. And that's why the media won't touch them. Otherwise, what could be more obvious than as a society condemning these morons? No, there are people that praise them as heroes. There are people that are saying that what they're doing is, good. I mean, Cuomo himself and other people have compared them on CNN to the founding fathers. Sorry, I have to specify which Cuomo. The Cuomo brothers have really become among the worst offenders of virtue signaling BS crap in this period of riots and pandemic. I mean, they're just awful. No honesty, no integrity, and they're both more famous and more influential than they've ever been. Which then brings me to how crazy are the libs really right now? I just had to share this with you. This was amazing. You have Paul Krugman, who shared out. And Paul Krugman is a celebrated figure on the left. He's an intellectual that the left holds up as a person. His political analysis is childish. Not very smart, not very wise, but he's good at complicated economic models. What exactly does Paul Krugman bring to the world? Teaches economics at Princeton University. Another place that's been churning out deeply unimpressive, but think they're very impressive people for many decades now. Paul Krugman says, and by the way, that's true of all elite schools. I'm not just picking on Princeton. Pretty much when I meet someone who says they went to an Ivy League school now, I say, okay, well, it's 50-50 that you're smart. It's 50-50, which maybe is a little higher than the general. And I mean, impressive, academically impressive. But it's 50-50. Did you get into school because mommy and daddy went there? Did you get into school because you're a recruited athlete? Did you get into school because you're a preferred, underrepresented category? None of those have to do with academic excellence. None of them. So and by the way, when you cover those three categories at a lot of schools, it's like more than half the class. It's like 60-70% of the class. But I digress. Paul Krugman, in response to this piece, surge begins reaching older, more vulnerable Floridians from Bloomberg. Paul Krugman writes, reality is coming for white supremacists driving golf carts. What? What did this little sick maniac say? We've got a lot of seniors, Democrats and Republicans, not that matters to any normal, sane person. a lot of seniors in Florida who, are at risk. We are in a pandemic. I mean, this is really bad for older people. It is scary. I get that. But we also need to have policies in place that recognize who is really at risk and who this is frightening for and who is being used as a political tool. Paul Krugman says reality is coming for white supremacists driving golf carts. He thinks that's funny. He thinks that people's moms and dads who might get COVID-19 and die, or people's grandma, grandpa get COVID-19 and die, they're white supremacists now? These are just people who live in Florida. The article's about seniors living in Florida. I mean, Paul Krugman is a disgusting moron. These leftist libs are a disgrace. I don't just disagree with them. I don't think they're wrong on some stuff. These are bad people. These are immoral, vicious, insecure, sanctimonious people. But, that describes a big chunk of the Democrat Party these days, unfortunately. That mentality and that approach to politics really describes a big piece of the Democrat Party. Certainly the vanguard, the intellectual elite. They're not impressing anybody with their wisdom and their knowledge. They're shouting people down and doing ad hominem attacks of the most base and ridiculous kind. And then they celebrate things like this because, hashtag own Trump, hashtag orange man bad. Paul Krugman says reality is coming for white supremacists driving golf carts in Florida. Because one person on one video tried to mock protesters by very foolishly yelling white power. He was trying to say it sarcastically, but it was a dumb thing to say. That's one person. There are hundreds of thousands of seniors in Florida of all ethnicities and political persuasions who are at risk from COVID-19. And Paul Krugman's making jokes about it? Do you think he's going to get fired from his job at the New York Times for that? No. My friends, where is our national courage? Not just to speak the truth on these issues, but to take the fight to the enemy. I keep saying, when are we going to be wartime conservatives? When are we going to take action? And I'm also going to keep saying this. Where is President Trump on this stuff? Where's the fire in the belly? I haven't seen it yet. Just another thing on the coronavirus debate. I know I'm hitting it hard today, and I want to get into some other topics. We have discussed a little bit about wokeness, but this is the political race right now. So you can think about it this way. Whenever I'm talking to you about COVID-19 or about the woke mobs in the streets and the statue toppling and all this stuff, that is the Democrats' elect Biden effort, because Joe Biden is a joke and has nothing to offer American society himself. He's an empty vessel for the Democrat left to exploit once he fools enough people who aren't paying attention to what's really happening in this country into voting for him this fall. So think of it that way. It's a twofer. I mean, talk about COVID or to talk about the wokeness. That's the Biden 2020 election campaign. That's what the Democrats and the left are running right now. But on the reopening schools point, the American Association of Pediatrics, it's something like that. I might be getting the name of the group somewhat. But basically the big association about pediatricians in America has put out a statement that got very little media play saying, we got to reopen schools this fall, okay? Everyone needs to be back in school. We're not going to reopen schools. This distance learning thing, kids need interaction with other kids. They need socialization. They need interaction with teachers. For a lot of kids being in school. And I would just note this, the people who said, and this is a terrible situation, but there are a lot of morons out there in the media who can't figure this stuff out. So I've got to talk about it. They say, well, child abuse actually has gone down by the numbers. People who say that really are, I just don't think that they have an IQ above that of a handbag or a toaster. The reason that a lot of child abuse is found is from teachers who are mandated to report if they see signs of child abuse when the kid comes into school. That's not happening anymore. You think that child abuse, while people have been locked at home, without that additional layer of possible protection and assistance, you think it's gotten worse? Of course, it's gotten much worse. For a lot of kids, their food security, that they get fed every day, is tied to being able to go to school. We're not going to open schools. You got over half of teachers in the K through 12 system nationwide are under the age of 40, which means that they're not going to be in the classroom, even though they're at less risk from this disease than they are from seasonal flu. It's true for people in the younger age categories, right? Than at least other flus have been in recent years. Just make it about H1N1. Did we shut down all the schools for H1N1? No. A lot of people died from that. And younger people certainly died from it. Why aren't we opening schools? It's hard to see this as anything other than just a fight against normalcy and a fight against things getting better from people who don't want them to get better. They just find a way to blame all of this on President Trump, and their entire identity, their sense of worth is tied up in their spoon-fed Democrat politics. And if that means kids don't get to stay in school this fall or go to school this fall, as long as Trump loses, nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. They just simply don't care. It doesn't make any difference to them. But the kids are going to suffer. The science is in on this. Children are at completely tolerable risk from COVID-19. It is almost zero. Kids need to be back in school. Why aren't we opening up all the schools? Oh, because the teachers are afraid? Well, teachers that are legitimately afraid can do distance learning, but a lot of other teachers should be able to go in and should be told, you're really going to be okay. If you're 35 years old and you teach 6th grade social studies, you're going to be okay. Because, kids are very unlikely to transmit the disease to adults. They don't know why this is, but they know that's the case. No one pays attention to science, though, on this. It's all been so politicized. This is the presidential election playing out. What happens with COVID is the presidential election. What happens with these statue-toppling lunatics will determine who the next president of the United States is. It's not about who has a better vision for the future. It's not about, the record that that Trump has now versus the record that Biden has. We will determine who will be the next president of the United States based upon how these issues play out right now. Unless, we go to war with Iran in the next 30 days. But I think that's unlikely because Mustache Bolton's no longer the national security advisor. So we're in better shape on that front. Oh, we got another all-in on wokeness situation here. Oh, boy. We got a couple of them, actually. The NBA and also some a new think piece in Time magazine on superheroes. The superheroes are going to get the woke treatment. I will have to dig into this with you. This NBA decision. Professional sports are really, they're just going to destroy themselves unless they stop doing this nonsense. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. They're going to become as politicized as the faculty lounge at Oberlin College. Working from home is driving up one of the worst types of cybercrime out there, home title theft. You see, we're doing it all from home these days. Working, banking, video conferences, meal deliveries, and shopping. Cyber criminals are actually targeting our homes. Well, actually, what they want is the money they can get by taking out loans against your home. This crime is called home title theft. The FBI is trying to get the word out about it. You see, your home's title is out there online. Home Title Lock is how you protect your home from cyber thieves. You see, online they can find and forge your signature. The bad guys can take that and then state that you sold your home to them. Then they'll take out loans on your home and leave you in debt. Banks, insurance, and basic identity theft services do not protect you. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. Protect your home now. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. And use code BUCK for 30 free days of protection to help you through this crisis. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Make sure you use code BUCK. NBA may allow players to wear social justice messages on their jerseys. This was the piece in the Washington Post yesterday. Let me give you some of the details, and then we will dive into this one together. The NBA season, compressed out of necessity because of the novel coronavirus pandemic, is going to look a lot different, possibly right down to the jerseys the players wear when it resumes next month outside Orlando. The Players Union and the league are in talks about allowing a player to use the shirt on his back to send a message that he cares deeply about whether it's social justice or a charity, ESPN reported. It would be a logical extension of last week's agreement in which the NBA and the National Basketball Players Association agreed to continue to discuss how they could best use their platform to fight systemic racism. We're just trying to continue to shed light on different social justice issues that guys around our league continue to talk about day in and day out. Chris Paul, president of the NBPA and a guard for the Oklahoma City Thunder, said, people are saying that social justice will be off everybody's mind in Orlando. With these jerseys, it doesn't go away. Yeah, but I think your audience may go away, or at least a portion of it. I know I will definitely not watch if I see a bunch of professional athletes getting paid millions of dollars, treated like heroes by society, elevated to the status of superstars, and then turn around and tell the country how racist it is with, I don't know what they're going to possibly have on the backs of their jerseys, but, I can't breathe, or, cops are racist, or just Black Lives Matter, or whatever it may be. People watch sports to get away from all of that. People watch sports for the narrative, the excellence, the drama, the excitement. They're not watching sports to get a political lesson. Okay, that's just the truth. And, look, this is where I think the market will have to speak, because and whenever I talk about corporate America bending the knee to wokeness, this is another perfect example of that. Oh, does anyone think this is really going to be good for league viewing? Does anyone think this is going to be, and a league that's struggling right now because it's been off the air, so they clearly need money, right? They clearly need to get this up and running again. Does anyone think that this will improve viewership? I think the answer is quite clearly no. For individual players, it may enhance their brand. We've seen this with Colin Kaepernick, who was, based on everything I've been told by people that actually pay very close attention to football, essentially at the end of his most productive years in the NFL, and managed to turn himself into a civil rights icon. So there's that. So there will be players that do this. It's going to be some of the usual players that have had very loud voices in the past. I mean, LeBron James is someone who will not bend the knee to, or rather will bend the knee to China. That's a place where, you don't, that's, whoa, hold on. Let's not stand up for freedom when it comes to China, but is perfectly happy to lecture America and Americans about the circumstances of systemic racism in this country. I mean, this is a guy who has been treated like a superhero since he was, 14 or 15 years old? He's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He has incredible influence. Everywhere he goes, people just want to see him, talk to him, get a high five, think he's amazing. And he really doesn't have anything kind to say about America, does he? No, it's always more about systemic racism. And what are we told about systemic racism? That it's really the problem has to do with the cops. That's where the systemic racism really is. Okay. How do they suggest that we deal with that? Fewer cops on the streets? We know how that ends. It's already happening now. It means more minorities will be killed in high crime neighborhoods. So they're doing the rich millionaires of the NBA really doing a great job helping out people left behind in rough neighborhoods. But you won't hear much talk about that, will you? Nope, you will not. And just never mind, in all neighborhoods, crime spreads when there's a crime wave. It's not just limited to any one part of a city. It'll get worse everywhere. It's just a question of how much worse it gets and where you see the biggest spike. So here we're being told that, yes, the Washington Post is reporting that Black Lives Matter or I Can't Breathe messages will be sent when the season resumes July 30th. An extension of the activism NBA players have long shown when it comes to social injustice and police brutality. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and the Miami Heat posed in hoodies after Trayvon Martin was killed in Florida in 2012. Okay. Well, we know what actually happened with Trayvon Martin. He attacked somebody and was smashing his head into the sidewalk. Now, the guy he attacked is a weirdo who thought he was some kind of neighborhood super cop or something. Wasn't a cop at all. But, if you're smashing someone's head against the sidewalk and they have a gun, they're probably going to use it. How George Zimmerman, who, according to left-wing media rules, was a white Hispanic, which was fascinating because under other circumstances, he would just be described as Hispanic. But George Zimmerman, who is as Hispanic as Colin Kaepernick is African-American by background, right? These are just facts. George Zimmerman was classified as a white Hispanic and somehow became a stand-in for cops. And investigation, and they showed the abrasions on Zimmerman's head. A guy got into a fight with another guy, and one guy was bashing his head against the sidewalk or in the concrete, and the guy who was getting his head bashed in pulled the gun and shot him. Well, what does that tell us about systemic racism exactly? I don't know. To this day, I still wonder, what's the systemic racism? A black guy and Hispanic guy get into a fight, and the Hispanic guy has a gun, pulls it, and shoots him while he's getting his head pounded in. I'm missing this is a racism incident. But remember, the media constructed one. Constructed a racist narrative out of this. There was a reporter, I believe she worked for NBC, who doctored the audio that they aired so that it sounded like Zimmerman said something racist when he hadn't said anything. But they just edited the audio. And this isn't a theory. This isn't something that, just do a Google search. You'll see. Why would the liberal media lie about the incident? Why create facts that aren't there? Why fabricate them? Because they like this narrative. They like the narrative of, and the photos of young Trayvon that we were all constantly showed, he was like 11 years old or something. When in reality, the Trayvon Martin that George Zimmerman was fighting was 18 years old, a legal adult in every state in the United States, and was like 6 feet tall and weighed about 170 pounds. But let's all only see a photo of him when he's 12. That was the media's. How could anyone see that as anything other than dishonest? Same thing with Mike Brown. Hands up, don't shoot. Hands up, don't shoot is a lie. But remember, Trayvon was killed for his hoodie. A lie. Mike Brown was killed with hands up, don't shoot. A lie. I don't think these things are lies. This is what the investigations of these, including by Eric Holder, the African-American Attorney General under President Obama, the first African-American president, found about the incident in St. Louis, according to numerous eyewitnesses. But is there ever an accounting for this? Do they ever take a step back and say, you know what, we're sorry that we spread all these lies about this, and we're trying to put a poison into American society rooted in exaggerated claims of racism and systemic bias and all this stuff? No, they never do. It doesn't matter. This serves the Democrat purpose. You see, when people talk about this as a Marxist movement at its core, it's a very easy way to understand this. Marx is, and there's people have spent their whole lives just studying Marx and the writings of Marx, and really Karl Marx and Engels along with him are responsible for what has been the most destructive, violent, nihilistic, and evil ideology of the last 160 years or so. So let's remember that. They have caused hundreds of millions, billions of people over time to live in misery, despair, and often have their lives ended by people who thought they were doing good stuff for the collective or for the people by putting a pistol at the back of somebody's head in a dark cellar somewhere and never letting them see their family again. And that's the last thing they ever hear is that cocking of the pistol. And Marx used a very powerful tool. We always hear about how he believed in the rising up and the dictatorship of the proletariat and that the workers of the world would unite and all these things. But Marx really just used class warfare, really took the separation of different individuals by socioeconomic status, and then took that very basic human feeling of envy and turned society inward against each other, right? And used the politics of envy are very powerful. Oh, I should have, that guy has a big fancy house down the street. I should have that too. But instead of thinking, what did that person do to get that? Or how can we have more of that throughout all society? Because wealth creation is actually not zero sum. This is one of the great lies the left will tell you. You listening to this right now live a life of greater affluence based on food, the size of your home, the conveniences you have, the medical care you have access to. You live a life of greater affluence than the richest people in the world 150 years ago. And you can't even contest this, right? Well, how can you explain that? How can people today be like, oh, because wealth is not zero sum? Wealth, as we know it, material wealth, the comforts of the modern world around us, it's not zero sum. But we're led to believe it is zero sum by Marxists. So what they do is they use this class separation as a form of constant agitation and promise to eliminate these divisions when, as we know, human nature is some people work harder than others, some people are luckier than others, some people have more gifts than other people. That's never going to change. You can have an equal playing field, you can have uniformly enforced rules, you can have contracts, you can have private property, but you can't eliminate inequality. But if you believe that inequality is effectively a religious calling, right, that the elimination of it is the highest achievement that humankind could ever reach, you always have a cause for agitation. And so that's why it's so useful. When people are talking about how this is a Marxist group, they mean it in economic terms, but they also mean it in the sense that race is now being used by a political movement, by the left, as this source of constant agitation and division among us. The same way that you can tell people in a society that even if it were ethnically homogenous, well, that guy down the street has something better than you, or he's happier than you, and if you do this with enough people, you can get them angry, play on the envy, play on their outrage and fear. You can do that in a very diverse society, which America is, by constantly saying this group is oppressing you. You are oppressed. That group is oppressing you. That will never entirely go away. And so that's why it's so useless to the rabble-rousers of the left. And that's where this Marxism comes in. It's just now the focus is more on race instead of class as the point of Marxist division between all of us. That's what they're doing, though. That's what's happening right now. And it will never entirely go away, right? It's just a question of who exploits it, who takes it out of context, who ignores that Americans love each other, want to hang out with each other, and see each other as human beings and don't see each other based on their race. Just ignore all of that and make it about race, because you can always find friction and agitation, which helps people to get power. There are people that use this for their own purposes. And that's what's actually happening right now. This is why the Democrats are using it. The Democrats are leveraging this to defeat Trump.
The tens of thousands of Americans protesting the appalling killings of black men and women are calling upon us, on all of us, not just to say the words Black Lives Matter, but to take a tangible step toward making it true by breaking apart the systems that have stolen countless black lives and denied black Americans opportunity and equal treatment. Being race conscious is not enough. It never was. We must be anti-racists.
Straight out of the corporate diversity seminar playbook here from Elizabeth Warren. It's not enough to not be racist. You have to be an anti-racist. How do you become an anti-racist, according to the Democrat Party and according to the left? Do what they say. Sign on for the whole agenda. And so if you're not willing to do that and therefore be an anti-racist, you know what? You know what they're telling you? You might be a little racist. Yeah, you might be a little racist. This is the form of psychological coercion that they use, and unfortunately is so effective, whether it's in the corporate boardroom or even people now, sitting around. But not that you can sit around and really have a drink anywhere these days without the fear of being shut down for COVID. Everyone's constantly panicked about it. But I want to ask Elizabeth Warren how we make this go away. Okay, we have this systemic racism. Nowhere in the law can you point to anything that is discriminatory against black Americans as the law exists today. And the only racial discrimination that does exist, that is legitimized and that is clear in the law, is in favor of black and other minorities in this country in the form of affirmative action. So can we deal in reality, or are we going to deal in it? No, we're going to deal in something that's not reality. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley here saying that that black Americans have never, ever had equal treatment under the law. Play clip 6.
Ranking Member Jordan earlier was talking about equal protection under the law and his experience of violations of the First Amendment in the wake of a pandemic. And, you know, the ironic thing is the reason why there is unrest in our streets is because black Americans have never had equal protection under the law. That's why they're in the streets in the midst of a pandemic and are being met with more of a police state, which is the very reason why there is an uprising. And the protesters that are the front lines today would have been the Diane Nagins and the John Lewises and the Dr. Kings of the early days of the civil rights movement.
What a misrepresentation that is on two levels. One, that here you have a sitting member of Congress who says that there's never been equal treatment for black Americans under the law. Okay, if that's true, where is the unequal treatment in the law? Talk to me about it. Show it to me. And don't tell me that there's a disparate rate of incarceration, because then the next question will be, is there a disparate rate of committing crimes? That's the obvious next question that anybody would ask. I've talked about this in the male-female context too. Men commit many more violent crimes than women. The law is not discriminatory against men when it comes to don't assault people. But then there's also her claim about the protesters today. Really? I don't think that the civil rights heroes of the past thought that tearing down statues of abolitionists even was a good idea.